distinct, crystalline sharpness greets me the moment the cabin seal breaks, carrying the scent of deep, frozen water and ancient stone. It is a quiet cold, the kind that hushes the mind before the body even registers the drop in temperature. The air here does not just touch the skin, it wakes it, pressing gently against my face with the clean, neutral weight of the Arctic. Before me, the sky is a pale, endless canvas of washed-out indigo, stretching over a landscape that feels older than time itself. I take a breath, letting the chill fill my lungs, grounding me instantly in this place where the earth meets the ice. My boots find the metal grate of the stairs. There is a solid, dull thud with each step downward, a tactile reminder of gravity returning after hours of suspension. I grip the cold railing, the steel smooth and firm under my palm, guiding me down toward the tarmac. The ground is hard, a mixture of paved stone and patches of stubborn ice that capture the low light. I move toward the terminal building, the wind offering a gentle resistance, pressing against my coat as if testing my balance. Inside the arrival hall, the atmosphere shifts immediately. The vast, open silence of the outdoors is replaced by the contained, rhythmic hum of a building at rest. I grasp the handle of my luggage, the leather grip warm from my hand, and begin the slow journey across the floor. This is a space of transit, a corridor of waiting, and I let myself sink into the simple mechanics of movement. The floor here is polished stone, cool and gray. My boots make a soft, heavy sound against it, a slow tempo that dictates the speed of my thoughts. Behind me, the suitcase rolls on 4 rubber wheels. They glide over the smooth surface, producing a low, continuous drone that vibrates travel up through my arm. It is a steady, reassuring sound. I watch the floor pass beneath me. Occasionally, the texture changes. There is a metal transition strip, a thin silver line dividing the hall. The wheels cross it with a brief, double beat of resistance, a tactile bump that resonates for a second before smoothing out again. I continue forward. The stone gives way to a section of industrial carpet, a tight, dark weave designed to trap the snow from outside. The sound of my steps disappears here, absorbed instantly by the fabric. The drone of the suitcase becomes a hushed whisper, a friction-heavy slide that requires just a little more effort to pull. I do not rush. I focus on the sensation of the weight trailing behind me, the pendulum swing of my arm, the predictable cadence of my own breathing. The hall stretches out, bathed in artificial light that reflects off the signage and glass partitions. I pass a row of empty seats, their metal legs anchored firmly to the ground. The air inside is still and warm, smelling faintly of coffee and heated dust. My path curves toward the exit, leading me back onto a floor of hard linoleum tiles. The rhythm returns. Tap, tap, tap. wheels hum once more, a higher pitch now on this harder surface. I let my gaze unfocus, watching the blurred reflection of the overhead lights sliding across the polished floor, tracking the motion of my own shadow as it lengthens and shortens with every step. Leaving the terminal, the transition to the town is seamless. The vehicle that carries me moves with a heavy, confident traction. The tires crunching over packed snow that coats the road like a second skin. Through the glass, the landscape unspools in slow motion. It is a world of white and gray, interrupted only by the sudden, joyful assertions of color. The houses of Nuuk appear as vibrant blocks of red, sunflower yellow, and deep blue, standing defiant against the monochrome backdrop. They do not blend in, they declare their presence. I watch them slide past, framed by the window, each one a stationary boat on a frozen sea. The accommodation is quiet. I enter, and the door seals with a heavy, final click, shutting out the world. The room is warm, smelling of untreated pine and fresh linens. I leave my bag by the door, the wheels finally still. I unbutton my coat, feeling the weight of the layers peeling away, leaving me lighter. I move to the bed. It is large, dominated by a duvet that looks like a cloud brought down to earth. I sit on the edge, the mattress yielding gently under my weight. I swing my legs up, the fabric of my trousers brushing against the coverlet with a soft, dry rustle. I lie back. The pillow is cool against my neck. I stare up at the ceiling, a blank, smooth expanse of white. My hands rest on my stomach, rising and falling with the slow tide of my breath. The stillness of the ice outside seems to seep through the walls, settling over me like a heavy, comforting blanket, waiting for the long, slow drift of the Arctic night. The air here carries a weight that has nothing to do with humidity. It is a dry, crystallized heaviness that settles in the lungs, tasting faintly of salt and ancient, pulverized stone. Standing at the edge of the old colonial harbor, the silence is not an absence of sound, but a blanket that muffles the world. To the left, the wooden houses paint the shoreline in deep ochre and oxide red, their colors standing defiant against the monochrome backdrop of gray rock and white sky. Water in the harbor is the color of steel. It moves with a heavy, oily lethargy, barely disturbing the pilings of the small pier. I have come here to watch the tide retreat. It is a slow process, a gradual exhaling of the ocean. Beneath the surface, a shadow begins to sharpen. I lean against the wooden railing, the cold seeping through my gloves, and fix my eyes on a specific patch of rippling dark water. This is the home of Sushuma Arna, the mother of the sea. She is not flesh, but granite, a sculpture submerged by the high tide and revealed only when the water wills it. Minutes drift by. A rounded shape breaks the surface tension, First, the crown of a head, smooth and wet, glistening under the pale Arctic sun. Then the curve of a shoulder. The water laps against the stone, peeling back layer by layer. There is no rush in this revelation. The ocean clings to her form, hesitating before dropping an inch lower, then another. Finally, her face emerges, stoic and enduring, gazing up through the thin layer of water before meeting the open air. She breathes again, turning away from the harbor. The terrain demands a different kind of attention. The pavement ends, surrendering to the bedrock that defines this coast. This is nice. Some of the oldest stone on the planet, folded and twisted by heat and pressure 3 billion years ago. It feels permanent underfoot, a solid floor that has outlasted continents. I make my way up a gentle slope toward the peninsula. The wind picks up here, unobstructed by the harbor buildings. It creates a low, rushing sound in the ears, like the static of a radio tuned between stations. Ahead, a large formation rises from the ground, shaped vaguely like a resting animal. This is a sheetrock, rounded by millennia of ice. Approaching it, the texture changes. The windward side is smooth, polished by the endless friction of air and snow. But down low, near the base, I find the mark I was looking for. The trim line. It is a subtle boundary, a horizon line drawn on the stone itself. I crouch to bring my eyes level with it. Below this line, the rock is pale and scoured clean, stripped bare by the winter snowpack that buries it for months at a time. Above the line, where the snow cover is thinner or melts faster, life has taken hold. I run a gloved finger along this border. It is jagged and microscopic. Above my finger, tiny colonies of orange and black lichen create a rough, sandpaper texture. They are dormant but alive, clinging to the gneiss. Below my finger, the stone is slick and naked. Tracing this line feels like reading the memory of the winter, a physical record of where the ice held its ground. Rising from the crouch, I turn my back to the town and face the open Davis Strait. The path forward is not marked by signs, but by the logic of the geology. I seek the flat ridges, the natural spines of rock that lead toward the water's edge. The rhythm of the hike simplifies. There is only the placement of the boot and the intake of air. One step, the rubber sole finds purchase on a ridge of gray stone. The weight shifts forward. The back foot lifts. The air enters the nose, cold and clean, filling the chest before being released in a cloud of white vapor. Another step. The ground is uneven but predictable. There are no trees to break the line of sight, no bushes to snag the clothes. There is only the hard, undulating surface of the earth and the vast dome of the sky. I settle into a cadence that matches the beat of my own pulse. Step, breath, step, breath, the visual field is dominated by cool tones. The gray of the ground merges with the blue of the distance. The sound of walking is a dull, rhythmic thudding, absorbed instantly by the open space. There is no need to think about destination. The coastline guides the movement. A long, flat stretch of rock offers an easy passage, requiring no climbing, no jumping, just a steady pendulum motion of the legs. The wind presses against my right side, a constant, firm presence that does not push, but merely leans. Step. The boot lands flat. The knee bends slightly. The lungs expand. The world narrows down to this repetition. The complexity of the harbor is gone. The history of the rock is gone. There is only the sensation of movement through cool air. The eyes rest on the horizon, where the water meets the sky in a soft, hazy blur. Time seems to detach from the ticking of a clock and align itself with the slow, rolling swell of the distant sea. The body moves on autopilot, a machine of bone and muscle working in quiet efficiency. Step, breath, the repetition is a lullaby. Gradually, the momentum slows. The shelf of rock widens, forming a natural viewing platform overlooking the sea. I drift toward a flat, dry slab and lower myself down. The stone is cold, but the parka offers a barrier. From this vantage point, the scale of the world expands. The water is dotted with ice. These are not towering mountains of frost, but smaller, humbler pieces, growlers, and burgee bits drifting north with the current. They are white and luminous, glowing with an inner light that seems to come from deep within the compressed snow. I watch one particular piece of ice. It is jagged, shaped like a broken tooth. It rotates slowly in the current, revealing a flash of brilliant, electric blue below the waterline before dipping back under. It does not struggle. It simply goes where the water takes it. The light begins to shift. The harsh brightness of the afternoon softens. The shadows in the crevices of the rocks lengthening and turning a deep violet. The wind settles down, as if the land itself is preparing for the evening. I keep my eyes on the drifting ice, watching it move inch by inch across the dark water, until the separation between the white ice and the gray twilight begins to dissolve. The golden larch wood of the Caduac Cultural Center curves like a suspended wave, holding back the weight of the city. Standing at the base of the facade, the scale of the architecture feels intimate rather than imposing. The wood is weathered to a silver gray that mimics the surrounding ice, yet it retains a warmth that radiates when the sun touches it. I move closer to the outer shell. Here is the first sub-goal of the afternoon. The hidden glyphs are not painted signs or brass plaques, but subtle reliefs carved directly into the structure, visible only when the angle of the light shifts. I drift along the perimeter, letting my eyes lose focus, waiting for the shadows to reveal the shapes. A cloud passes overhead, dimming the ambient glare. In that sudden drop of contrast, they appear. Faint, rhythmic indentations run along the timber, suggesting the movement of water or the drift of wind. They are texture more than image. I run a gloved hand near the surface without touching it, tracing the invisible current. The light returns, washing the wall in brightness, and the glyphs vanish back into the grain, waiting for the next shadow. Turning away from the center, the streets of Nuuk begin to slope downward. The city layout is a series of shelves and ledges, leading inevitably to the fjord. I adjust the strap of my camera bag, feeling the canvas settle against my shoulder, and begin the descent toward the water. The ground is firm beneath my boots. The pavement has disappeared under a layer of hard-packed snow, scoured clean by the wind until it resembles white sandstone. My pace settles into a slow, deliberate cadence. One step, then another. The sound of my movement is a low, muffled crunch, distinct and dry. It repeats with the regularity of a metronome. Crunch, step, crunch. There is no need to look up. The visual field is a blur of white ground and gray periphery. The air is still, lacking the bite of the morning, hanging suspended and cool against my cheeks. I focus entirely on the sensation of walking. The rhythm takes over. There is the lifting of the heel, the swing of the leg, the placement of the sole. The weight transfers smoothly from left to right. My breath creates a small rhythmic cloud that appears and dissolves in time with my stride. Nothing changes for a long time. The slope continues its gentle decline. The horizon line remains steady. The only input is the tactile feedback of the ground and the metronomic sound of rubber soles on snow. It is a long, unbroken corridor of motion. There are no distractions here, just the steady, hypnotic repetition of forward momentum. The mind empties, leaving only the physical act of transport. The muscles in my calves contract and release. The cold air fills my lungs and leaves them again. Step, breath, step, breath. The world narrows down to the few feet of white terrain directly ahead, passing beneath me in a continuous, flowing stream. Gradually, the monochrome rhythm begins to break. Colorful shapes emerge from the white surroundings as the terrain levels out near the harbor. This is Migadalen. The name suggests a valley, and the geography creates a natural amphitheater facing the sea. The light has shifted to the blue hour. The sky is no longer gray, but a deep, resonant indigo that seems to glow from behind the clouds. It is time to find the colors. The houses here are not merely painted, they are saturated. I lift the camera, Through the viewfinder, the world is framed and intensified. I am looking for the specific combination mentioned in the old guidebooks: the mint and the peach. To my left, a sharp A-frame rises from a granite outcrop. It is a vivid, electric crimson, startling against the snow. I bypass it, panning the lens slowly to the right. A mustard yellow cottage sits heavily on its foundation, its windows glowing with warm, tungsten light. Then down a narrow side street that leads directly to the water's edge, the palette softens. The first gable is the color of dried mint leaves, a pale, dusty green that seems to absorb the blue twilight rather than reflect it. It stands shoulder to shoulder with its neighbor. The second house is the color of a winter peach, a soft, muted orange that feels incredibly warm in this landscape of ice. I do not snap the photo immediately. I let the scene sit in the glass of the lens. The contrast is gentle. The mint and the peach gables lean together, their roof lines dusted with fresh powder. Behind them, the dark water of the fjord creates a void, and above, the first stars are piercing the indigo canopy. Lowering the camera, I simply stand and watch the colors hold their ground against the deepening night. A light in the peach house flicks off, then on again, a signal from a life unfolding inside. The cold is starting to settle into the folds of my coat, heavy and comforting. I turn my gaze toward the water, where the silhouette of a small boat bobs silently on the tide, drifting nowhere in particular. The road to the cemetery is paved with silence. It sits in a valley where the wind seems to lose its momentum, dropping down from the surrounding ridges to rest among the stones. This place is called Ekasajitsi. The name itself feels like a long, slow exhale. It means let there be peace, and the landscape obeys. I step off the cleared asphalt and onto the packed snow. It holds my weight with a dry, firm resistance. Before me, hundreds of white crosses rise from the white ground. They do not stand in perfect military rows. The earth here is alive with permafrost, the ground breathing and shifting with the seasons. And over time, it has gently pushed the markers into new angles. Some lean forward, as if listening to the ground. Others tilt back, looking toward the heavy gray sky. There is no sorrow in this geometry, only a sense of slow, geological movement. I wander between them. Bright splashes of color interrupt the monochrome palette. Wreaths of plastic flowers, red, violent orange, deep purple, rest against the wood. Because fresh flowers would freeze in minutes, these enduring petals hold their bloom against the cold. I pause by a cross, tilting heavily to the left. The wood is weathered, the white paint peeling in tiny, curled strips that flutter when the breeze picks up. Leaving the quiet valley, the road curves downward toward the water. The horizon opens up, revealing the steel gray expanse of the fjord. I pull my scarf tighter, The transition is gradual. The silence of the crosses gives way to the distant, mechanical hum of the industrial port. I settle into a rhythm of movement. One boot forward, finding purchase on the icy shoulder of the road. Then the other. The sound of my steps is a low crunch, a rhythmic compression of snow crystals that marks time. My breath forms a cloud that appears and vanishes in the space of a second. One step, another step. The world narrows down to this cadence. There is nothing to think about, only the sensation of gravity shifting from the left foot to the right. The air is cold against my cheeks, a sharp contrast to the warmth building inside my coat. My arms swing slightly, brushing against the side of my parka with a soft, swishing sound. The road stretches out, a gray ribbon flanked by banks of snow that have been pushed aside by plows. I count the pace. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. It is a closed loop of motion. Lift, place, shift, weight. Lift, place, shift, weight. To my right, the snowbank is textured with the tire tracks of machinery that passed hours ago. The patterns are intricate, ridges and valleys frozen in place. I watch them pass in my peripheral vision. The walking requires no conscious thought. It is just the body moving through space, a steady engine of heat. The cold air fills my lungs, clean and sharp, and leaves as warm vapor. There are no cars passing right now. It is just me and the gray sky and the white ground. The distance to the harbor closes meter by meter, not through rushing, but through this steady, unbreaking stride. The repetition is a comfort. It clears the mind. Step, crunch, breath. Step, crunch, breath. The terrain flattens as the port comes into view. I make my way to the water's edge, toward the Tidevanstrappen, the tide stairs. It is a place where the architecture meets the sea. I find a spot near the wooden shelter and lean against the railing. Below, the tide is shifting. The water here is not silent like the valley. It slaps against the pilings and the concrete foundations of the pier. Dark water swirls around the steps that descend into the fjord. Small chunks of ice, broken off from larger flows, bob in the current. They bump against the wood with a hollow wooden knock. It is a clumsy, gentle sound. I close my eyes for a moment to listen. The hum of a distant generator blends with the lapping water. It is the sound of a working harbor at rest. Opening my eyes, I look upward. The skyline is dominated by the Tuapenguit Towers. They are massive residential blocks, standing like cliffs against the backdrop of the real mountains. The windows reflect the flat light of the afternoon. High above the towers, the ravens are circling. They are enormous birds here, intelligent and watchful. I track their shadows, They do not flap their wings often. They ride the thermal currents rising from the buildings. One raven dips a wing and spirals lower, a silhouette of pure black gliding across the face of the concrete tower. Its shadow follows a second later, warping over the balconies and windows. I watch the dance of the birds for a long time. They drift and bank, masters of the air currents. The light is beginning to change now, the gray sky deepening into a bruised blue as the afternoon wears on. The orange lights of the port begin to flicker on, one by one, reflecting in the oily water below. The cold begins to seep through the layers of my clothing, but it is not unpleasant. It is merely a signal that the day is winding down. I turn my gaze back to the water, watching a single piece of ice rotate slowly in the eddy of the tide, turning round and round, going nowhere, simply existing in the current.